The NFL world is buzzing after insider Peter Schrager dropped an absolute bombshell on the Pat McAfee Show. The Cleveland Browns are about to make a shocking move that nobody saw coming. Despite bringing back comeback player of the year Joe Flacco and trading for Kenny Pickett, one of these veteran quarterbacks might not even make it to Week 1. Why? Because fifth-round rookie Shedeur Sanders is already turning heads in the building, and the Browns front office is preparing to do something that's practically unheard of in the NFL. What Shrager revealed next has fans, analysts, and even rival teams scrambling to figure out Cleveland's master plan that, let's be real here. When was the last time you heard of an NFL team carrying 4 quarterbacks into the regular season? It just doesn't happen. Most teams stick to the tried and true formula: starter, backup, emergency third string. But Cleveland? They're playing by completely different rules right now, and it's creating chaos in the most unexpected ways. Think about this for a second. The Browns aggressively pursued Joe Flacco as a free agent, bringing back the guy who literally saved their 2023 season and earned Comeback Player of the Year honors. They have history, they have chemistry with Kevin Stefanski, and Flacco proved he could still sling it when it mattered most. Then they went out and traded for Kenny Pickett from the Eagles, a former first-round pick who's still young and has starting experience. These aren't just depth signings. These are legitimate quarterback investments. But here's where it gets absolutely wild. During the draft, Cleveland shocked everyone by taking not 1, but 2 quarterbacks. First, they grabbed Dillon Gabriel. Then in the 5th round, they pulled the trigger on Shedeur Sanders, the same Shedeur Sanders that somehow fell all the way to day 3 despite being one of the most talked about quarterbacks in college football. Now, Peter Schrager is hearing things from inside the Browns facility that should have every NFL fan paying attention. When he appeared on the Pat McAfee Show, he didn't just casually mention the quarterback situation. He laid out a prediction that's borderline unprecedented in modern NFL history. "I would be surprised," Schrager said, and you could feel the weight of his words. "The 2 guys I would look at are Flacco and Pickett. They were aggressive in getting Joe Flacco as a free agent quarterback. They brought him back, and he has a great relationship with Kevin Stefanski. The 2 of them had great success 2 years ago, and he was the Comeback Player of the Year, but they also acquired Kenny Pickett. I would be personally surprised if both of those veteran quarterbacks are still on the roster come Week 1. Did you catch that? One of the most connected insiders in the NFL is basically saying the Browns are about to cut or trade a Comeback Player of the Year winner or a former first-round pick. And why? Because the rookies, especially Shedeur Sanders, are already making that kind of impression. But wait, it gets even crazier. AJ Hawk threw out the idea that maybe, just maybe, the Browns actually do keep all 4 quarterbacks. It's unheard of, it's against conventional wisdom, but Hawk put it out there. And Schrager's response tells you everything you need to know about what's really happening in Cleveland. Schrager believes the Browns will move forward with 1 veteran, Gabriel, and Sanders. Think about what that means. You're talking about potentially moving on from proven NFL veterans in favor of rookies who haven't thrown a single regular season pass. That's not just bold. That's the kind of move that either makes you look like a genius or gets you fired. So what's really going on here? How did we get to a point where Shedeur Sanders, a 5th-round pick, is potentially pushing out established NFL quarterbacks? Let's talk about Sanders' draft slide first, because it's absolutely fascinating and reveals everything about how NFL teams really operate behind closed doors. This is a guy who was lighting up college football at Colorado, putting up massive numbers, and leading one of the most dramatic turnarounds in recent memory. Yet somehow, he fell all the way to the 5th round. Ray Fittipaldo from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette dropped some serious truth bombs about why teams passed on Sanders. I think mostly, it had to do with they didn't have a grade on him within the first 5 rounds, he said about the Steelers. But then he revealed the real kicker. Now, a lot of people just didn't want to deal with Deion Sanders and what that might be down the road after he's done at Colorado. There it is. Teams weren't just evaluating Shedeur Sanders the player. They were evaluating Deion Sanders the father, the coach, the personality. They were worried about dealing with Primetime's influence and what that might mean for their organization. But Cleveland? They saw an opportunity where others saw complications. CBS Sports' Jonathan Jones went even deeper, talking about how everything just began to add up for teams, from Sanders allegedly sandbagging pre-draft interviews. at the NFL combined to concerns about his father's involvement. Jones made it clear that this wasn't necessarily fair, but it was reality. This is clearly a way for the NFL and its teams to let him and anyone else after him know, you can't comport yourself in this way moving forward. But here's the thing, the Browns didn't care about any of that noise. General Manager Andrew Berry said they never planned to select 2 quarterbacks, but when Sanders was still available in the 5th round, they couldn't pass up the value. And now, according to Shrager, that value pick is already creating waves. In the building, the love that Sanders is receiving internally is apparently real, and it's got people talking. We're not talking about token rookie praise here. We're talking about the kind of buzz that makes veteran players start looking over their shoulders. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Sanders has had a couple of hiccups since being drafted, specifically 2 speeding citations that have some people questioning his maturity and decision-making. But former Browns coach Eric Mangini put it in perspective during an appearance with Colin Cowherd. This is, in fairness to Shedeur, the first time he's been outside his dad's overview, his dad's house. Mangini explained, I think he was his high school, then his college coach. This is like any kid who's away from home for the first time. There's going to be a couple hiccups here and there. Mangini, who dealt with serious off-field issues during his time in Cleveland, made it clear that speeding tickets are nothing compared to what the Browns have dealt with at the quarterback position in recent years. Would I sell my stock on it like you are? No, because of a couple speeding tickets, especially in the light of the problems the Browns' quarterback room had to deal with legally in the last few years. This is nothing. And Sanders himself has owned up to his mistakes, posting on social media, I've made some wrong choices personally. I can own up to them. I made some not great choices. I learned from them. I learned. That kind of accountability, especially from a rookie, is exactly what teams want to see. The Browns have already had internal discussions with Sanders about it, and it seems like they're treating it as a learning experience rather than a red flag. But let's get back to the real story here. What's happening in that quarterback room? And why it's got everyone so fired up. Coach Kevin Stefanski has been giving Sanders rave reviews throughout OTAs and minicamp. We're talking about a coach who's known for being measured in his praise, especially with rookies. When Stefanski starts talking up a 5th-round pick, you know something special is happening. The dynamic in that quarterback room has to be absolutely fascinating. You've got Joe Flacco, the veteran who came in and saved the season, probably expecting to compete for the starting job. You've got Kenny Pickett, the former 1st-round pick, trying to revive his career and prove he belongs. Then you've got Dillon Gabriel, another rookie trying to make his mark. And in the middle of all this, you have Shedeur Sanders, the guy with the famous name, the college production, and apparently, the talent that's making everyone take notice. NFL insider Jeremy Fowler touched on this during a radio appearance, and his take reveals just how strategic the Browns are being with this situation. I still think they look at quarterback pieces like currency and value, Fowler said. So if somebody goes down to an injury in training camp, they have somebody they can potentially trade. Maybe it's Pickett, maybe it's one of the rookies. But I can see that sort of maneuvering. That's the key right there. The Browns aren't just hoarding quarterbacks for fun. They're stockpiling assets. They know that quarterback injuries happen, trades happen, and when they do, having quality depth becomes incredibly valuable. But there's a limit to how many you can actually keep, and that's where Schrager's prediction becomes so intriguing. The widespread belief around the NFL is that Cleveland will not keep all 4 quarterbacks. It's just not practical from a roster construction standpoint. But which ones stay and which ones go? That's where this gets really interesting. That if Schrager is right and the Browns are planning to move forward with 1 veteran, Gabriel, and Sanders, then we're talking about a massive shift in their approach. Think about the implications here. You're potentially trading or releasing a guy who won Comeback Player of the Year just 2 seasons ago, or a former 1st-round pick who still has plenty of career left. But maybe that's exactly the point. Maybe the Browns see something in Sanders that goes beyond his draft position. Maybe they see a guy who can be their franchise quarterback, and they're willing to make tough decisions now to clear the path for his development. The speeding citations might actually work in Sanders' favor. In a weird way, they show he's human. He makes mistakes, but he's also accountable for them. In a league where character concerns can tank careers, owning up to your mistakes and learning from them is actually a positive trait. And let's be honest about the elephant in the room, Deion Sanders' influence. While some teams might see it as a negative, the Browns might see it as an asset. Having a Hall of Fame player as your father, someone who understands the game at the highest level and can provide guidance and mentorship, isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just different, and NFL teams don't always like different, but Cleveland has never been afraid to do things differently. This is the same organization that traded for Deshaun Watson despite all the controversy. The same team that's willing to take calculated risks when they see opportunity. The training camp battle is going to be absolutely must-see TV. You've got 4 legitimate NFL quarterbacks competing for potentially 3 roster spots, with rookies trying to prove they belong and veterans fighting to keep their careers alive. The pressure is going to be incredible, and every throw, every decision, every moment is going to be magnified. But here's what makes this situation so compelling. It's not just about talent. It's about timing. It's about fit. It's about the Browns making a statement about who they want to be as an organization going forward if they do end up moving on from Flacco or Pickett in favor of keeping Sanders. They're essentially saying they believe in their evaluation process. They believe in taking risks on high-upside players, and they're willing to deal with whatever controversy comes with it. The NFL is a copycat league, and if the Browns pull this off, if Sanders develops into a legitimate starter and they look smart for keeping him over proven veterans, you're going to see other teams start taking similar risks with their roster construction. So here's what we're watching for as this story develops. First, how does Sanders perform in training camp and preseason? If he continues to impress and show that he belongs, it makes the decision to potentially move a veteran much easier. Second, what kind of trade market develops for guys like Flacco and Pickett? If teams are willing to give up meaningful assets, that could accelerate the Browns' timeline for making moves. Third, and maybe most importantly, how does Sanders handle the pressure and spotlight that comes with being Deion Sanders' son and a potential franchise cornerstone? The speeding citations were a minor test. The real tests are coming in training camp when every throw is being evaluated and every decision is being scrutinized. This situation is absolutely fascinating because it challenges everything we think we know about how NFL teams operate. You don't usually see organizations with this much invested in the quarterback position, and you definitely don't see rookies pushing out established veterans this early in the process. But that's exactly what makes the Cleveland Browns so intriguing. Right now, they're not playing by traditional rules, they're not making safe decisions, and they're clearly betting big on their ability to evaluate and develop talent. The question is, are they geniuses or are they about to make a massive mistake? Will Shedeur Sanders live up to the hype and justify the Browns' faith in him? Or will they regret moving on from proven veterans for an unproven rookie? And what does this mean for the future of how NFL teams approach the quarterback position? 1. Things for sure. This is going to be one of the most compelling storylines to follow as we head into the 2025 season. The Browns have created a powder keg at the most important position in football, and we're all just waiting to see if it explodes in their face or propels them to new heights. What do you think? Are the Browns crazy for potentially moving on from Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett, or are they ahead of the curve in recognizing Sanders' potential? Let me know in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for more insider NFL analysis that you won't find anywhere else.